will be first, and those who are first will be last.
Thank you, Rachel. Now is the time for the lighting of our chalice, and Rachel will share in a reading in honor of First Steps by Reverend Scott Taylor.
We light this chalice in honor of first steps, for beginning even when the path ahead is unclear, for the courage it takes to trust that the way will reveal itself, that light will come to clarify our vision, that friends will be by our side. May the words, song, stillness, and common breath of this hour remind us that every step of the way is never one we take alone.
Thank you. Our second reading was discovered by Rob Morrison and recommended by Pastor Issa. And this is A Sikh Prayer for America by Valerie Carr. In our tears and agony, we hold our children close and confront the truth. The future is dark. But my faith dares me to ask, what if this darkness is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb? What if our America is not dead, but a country still waiting to be born? What if the story of America is one long labor? What if all the mothers who came before us, who survived genocide and occupation, slavery and Jim Crow, racism and xenophobia and Islamophobia, political oppression and sexual assault, are standing behind us now, whispering in our ear, "You are brave"? What if this is our great contraction before we birth a new future? Remember the wisdom of the midwife. Breathe, she says, then push. Now it is time to breathe, but soon it will be time to push. Soon it will be time to fight for those we love. Muslim father, Sikh son, trans daughter, indigenous brother, immigrant sister, white worker, the poor and the forgotten, and the ones who cast their vote out of resentment and fear. Let us make an oath to fight for the soul of America, the land that never has been yet and yet must be, by Langston Hughes. With revolutionary love and relentless optimism, and so I pray this Sikh prayer, which is translated as, in the name of the divine within us and around us, we find everlasting optimism. Within your will, may there be grace for all of humanity. And now for the optimism we all celebrate, it's time for the story for all ages, and it looks like you are the ages who are going to be part of my story. So, and those of you on Zoom. I would like to invite you to come and join me. You may come up here as I read Amanda Gorman's Change Sings, a children's anthem. And as you know, Amanda Gorman was our poet at the inauguration and is the youngest ever person to read an inaugural poem. And so, yes, very good. Oh yeah, I have some friends coming up. All right, our book today is Change Sings by Amanda Gorman, the illustrations by Lauren Wong. Change Sings.
I don't have any kids up there, so.
So I have a question to ask you all. Okay, raise your hand if you've heard these names before. Harriet Tubman, Vice President Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Mahatma Gandhi. Oh, what a bright group. Okay, so I want to tell you a secret that they Really? They were children once. Can you believe that? Can you think of Mahatma Gandhi as a little boy? I read a bio one time of Mahatma Gandhi going out of his front porch, and his mother told him to freeze because right nearby was a cobra ready to strike. And thank goodness the cobra didn't do its job. So we have changed things because we are all agents of change and don't have to wait until we grow up. I can hear change humming in its loudest, proudest song. I don't fear change coming, and so I sing along. I scream with the skies of red and blue streamers. I dream with the cries of tried and true dreamers. I'm a chant that rises and rings. There is hope when my change sings. There's a little sad person. Let's find out what happens to him. Oh my. Looks like they're busy. Though some don't understand it, those windmills of mysteries, I sing with all the planets and its hills of histories. I hum with 100 hearts, each of us lifting a hand. I use my strengths and my smarts to take a knee, to make a stand. I am as bright as the light each day brings. There is love where my change sings. See, they're singing that nice song to the little lady. Got her outside and she looks pretty happy. I show others tolerance, though it might take some courage. Ooh, what do you think she's afraid of right now? Ooh, that person's kind of tall, plugging his ears, and that dog does not look happy. Well, let's find out what happens. I don't make a taller fence, but fight to build a better bridge. I talk not only of distances, but where and how we came. Oh my, somebody's joined them. It's the scary dog, doesn't look scary anymore. I also walk our differences to show we are the same. I'm a movement that roars and springs. There's a wave where my change sings. Change sings? Where? There, inside of me. Because I'm the change I want to see. As I grow, it grows like seeds. I am just what the world needs. I am the voice where freedom rings. You're the love your bright heart brings. We are the waves starting to spring, for we are the change we sing. We're what the world is becoming, and we know it won't be long. We all hear change strumming. Won't you sing along? Thank you. And if you want to read this again, I'm gifting this to the RE. So. Love our hearts so with you. Go in joy, our hopes fulfill. Learn in love and grow in wisdom. Shine your Here at UUFM, the offering we receive each Sunday morning goes to a special organization each month. And this month, our Helping Hands recipient is the Manhattan Emergency Shelter. And we're fortunate to have Emily Wagner, the director of Inside, here today to explain the shelter's important work in our community. So welcome, Emily, whose son came home this morning for a surprise visit to college. Oh, great.
Before he goes back to school. So thank you for having me. I always enjoy coming here, and I don't know how long or how many years I've been coming, many, but I've been with the shelter for 22 years. And I've been the director now for the last 12. And I will say that this is probably, these last couple of years have been the hardest years that we've had. COVID, for one. I don't even like to say the word COVID anymore because I thought we would be done with all of this. But COVID, for one, and I think with all of that, just brought about a lot for people in their personal lives. We're seeing a lot of mental health issues, a lot of depression. We're seeing a lot of drug addiction right now that we're dealing with, and it's made things very difficult for us just to help our clients the best that we can. But one good thing that it has brought about is some change in the community, because we're seeing some new services come to town, which I'm really excited about. And I think it's really pushed the community to find some solutions for drug and alcohol addiction. We've got some new sober living houses that are opening. We're finding new partnerships with some other agencies that are going to be able to provide those services. And we're finding new avenues, new funding avenues with agencies to help clients pay for things like mental health treatment when they can't pay for it on their own, to get them a start. So I am excited about that. It's too bad that we had to go through COVID to get to this point where I feel like we're really starting to get to a good place in the community and getting some good services for clients. But either way, we're here and things are looking up. Financially, though, I think all agencies have been struggling, and that's because this is a hard time for everyone. Things are costing more every day, and we're seeing that in our bills and our finances, as well as everyone else in their own personal finances, and we understand that. And so I think the best way right now that we're finding for people to help us is donation of in-kind products, in-kind things, so food, cleaning supplies, paper products, those kinds of things really help us. Bath towels, pillows, silverware, any of those things that you use in your own home, we go through probably 100 times faster at the shelter with all the clients that we have there. And we don't write much into our budget to purchase those things. We do rely on the community to help us with that, because then it allows us to use our funds to go directly to the clients to help with things like rent and prescriptions and transportation, those types of things. And so we appreciate those donations, and there's easy ways to make that happen when there's groups. I talk a lot on campus, and some of the groups there that meet, and if a sorority or a fraternity meet and they all bring one roll of toilet paper to their event, that's huge for us. 30 rolls of toilet paper get us through for a couple of weeks, and that is definitely necessary for us. So things like that, asking groups to be creative about how they donate to us and what they donate to us is exciting as well, to see all of the new enthusiasm, I guess, in the community. Right now we're gearing up for winter, and it's already starting to get cold. I wasn't sure what to wear this morning when I got out, and it is nicely warming up. But so we're looking for gloves and coats and hats again. We often get people that aren't even staying at the shelter, but that come by and need those things. And so we like to have plenty on hand that we can hand out. And then after the season, when we don't have room to store them anymore, we then donate all of those things on to other organizations that will keep using them throughout the year, so they don't go unused. And anything that we think that we'll use next year, we try to find a place to store those belongings. So, I know I come here every year, and I do appreciate that, but I want to tell you a little bit about the shelter and what the shelter does as well, for any of you that are not so familiar with us. So we are the homeless shelter in town. We're the only homeless shelter in town. There is a domestic violence shelter that serves anyone who is fleeing domestic violence and in immediate danger. And so we do work a lot with them, because once someone is no longer in danger at the crisis center, then they transfer and they come to the shelter a lot. And so we have a great partnership with the crisis center and work with them. I would say daily, we're working with them and helping support them as they help support us as well. We can house 46 people right now. What we have done is we've done a little bit of changing our rooms and our dorm rooms around to make more room for single males. We were seeing that is the population that we're turning away the most when we're full. And we felt like right now there's a lot of assistance in the community and the state for families, especially families with children, rental assistance, those kinds of things. But for single adults, there's just not as much. And our single men that we are seeing are struggling just as much and need that assistance. And so now, instead of being able to hold 12 men at a time, we can have 20. I know that doesn't seem like a huge difference, but it will make a huge difference for us, especially through this winter time. It did reduce a little bit of how many women we can serve at a time, single females, but that's kind of one of our lower populations. And I do think that is because we have the crisis center as well. And so we felt comfortable reducing our occupancy for women, and we still have 5 family rooms then for families to come and stay with us. So our biggest population of children that we see are actually children under the age of 5. We see a lot of young families come through with young children, and we're seeing more 2-parent families come through. And I think that just really speaks to just the state that things are in right now. Even 2-parent families are really struggling, especially when transportation is not reliable. That's the other factor that we're really running into. A lot of the jobs that pay well in town are on the outskirts of town. And we also try to get, we like to have our clients get a skill or a trade. We have a lot that go through CNA courses or CMA courses, which is great. That's a great trade to have. But a lot of the nursing homes and those facilities are all on the outskirts of town, if you've noticed. And so transportation to those places are difficult when that's your sole income source, your employment, and then you can't get clear out of town to that employment. And so we're definitely seeing more of that, and we're trying to be more strategic about where we're finding housing for people so that it's closer to some of those areas where they're working. How many people? We do have some people on Zoom. Wonderful. I saw that there is the Mennonite Church rally that's coming up on, I think it was November 11th that I read, and I went and spoke to them a few weeks ago. And in listening to the sermon here earlier, and you speak, Kathy, just reminded me that this is such a great community. The opportunity to get to come and speak, the opportunity for houses of worship like this for our community is awesome, because it makes people feel welcome. And we see a lot in our facility, individuals they don't fit in. They don't know where to fit in. They have a hard time fitting in. And because of the types of funding that we take, we can't suggest religious organizations or spiritual organizations, because we do take state and federal funding. But we do have a bulletin board, and we can put things up on our bulletin board suggesting places of worship and things. And so we do that with you guys, and the Mennonite Church and some of those other churches that we know are just so welcoming to our clients and to our families that come. And many of you may not even know, in your congregation who may be struggling and who may be working with us. But just know that this is a great place for our clients and those that are struggling to even seek out Pastor Isabel when they need. So she's an amazing human being, and great for clients who are just in a place of despair, I would say, and need someone to uplift them. Her voice is very calming for clients, I have found. So I'm hoping to meet with her. I was hoping she'd be here today, but I want to have coffee and come up with a way that we can maybe partner more with the shelter and just find a way that she can help some of those individuals in our shelter that are just struggling and looking for a place to belong. So thank you for coming. I probably took way more than my 4 minutes. So, but thank you for letting me come. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to us and donating. And your funds with Helping Hands, usually in December, we come and we do the Helping Hands offering for our Adopt an Ornament program in December. And we may, since it's November, we may still do that. We like to have funds set aside at Christmas time for families that check in very late. We always have families come Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and we like to provide something. Even if it's a blanket or a small toy for a child, something like that. Otherwise, if we feel like all of those needs are met for that, then it will probably go into our funds where we use for transportation, prescription assistance, eyeglasses, dental help. There's not a lot of assistance for dental help right now. And so those come out of our general funds when we're paying for clients to do those things. And that's where your funds come into play, because we can use it for that and they're not earmarked for anything else. I don't have to use it on utilities and I don't have to use it on anything specific. I can plug in the holes and use it where we feel is best. And I appreciate you guys giving us the leniency and the leeway to do that with your funds. So thank you for having me, and I am gonna go have lunch with my son.
Have a good day. Yes. Okay. Yes. We do. I just want to be sure you do. Yes, I do. They will. They do have restrictions on how many times you can do. Right. Yeah, they want to go year now. So sometimes we just have to be strategic in the assistance we use for clients and what's best. I think. Yes. Yes. And we appreciate them very much. Thank you all. Thank you, Emily. So Mary Beth and Emily were talking about the Fairy Godmothers, another fine organization in town. So now I wanted to remind you that you can donate online by going to uufm.net and then clicking the donate link and choosing the particular fund to which you want to contribute. If you're here in person, you can put your offering in the basket in the back. I'd also like you to invite you at this time to share your joys and sorrows this week. You can write on the paper that's over here, and I'll come around and collect those. And for those of you who are on Zoom, you may type something into the chat, and our host, Marissa, will read those for us. So, and let's see. Okay, so we've come to the time in our service when our community is our strength. Whether we have burdens to share or celebrations to hold up, we do so together. We acknowledge that change is constant, that it can be both invigorating and painful, but easier when we're not alone. Let us call upon a spirit of generosity, courage, and compassion as we listen to the joys and sorrows that have been shared. And then we have our offertory. Thank you, Renee. So we have some joys this morning. Mary Beth Reese says her joy is recovering from knee replacement. She was able to walk into the building and be with us today. I think that's pretty impressive. And Larry Weaver shares the trees and the sunsets this week have been a joy for me. And Marissa, do we have joys from online?
Yes, we have one joy. And Lynn Iwano and Lauren Clement would like to say that Lynn's scans are stable.
All right, I forgot to add my own joy. My grandchild Thurston turned 16 yesterday and is a really nice person. I'm so proud of them. Okay, we do have some concerns. Kathy Swinson shares, I'm sorry to hear that Lauren and Lynn have COVID, so we're wishing them a quick recovery. And Marissa, is there a concern from online?
No concerns.
Right, thank you. So please join me for a moment of silence as we honor the joys and sorrows that have been shared and those that remain quietly within our hearts. Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 168, One More Step. We will sing the verses 1, 2, and 4.
This next story comes from the Torah, the second book, Shemot, chapter 16. In the Christian tradition, the book is known as Exodus. So it's interesting that the Jewish title highlights the hearing or the faithfulness to God, and the Shema, Shemot Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one God. While the English title, Exodus, highlights the liberation of Israel and the time of wandering in the wilderness. So just one way these traditions interact with each other. In chapter 16, the people have been wandering. They've been liberated from slavery, and they've been wandering for about 10 weeks. So just long enough that they are getting worried, they are getting hungry, and some of them are beginning to realize how long this journey might really be. And some of them say, why couldn't we have just died in Egypt? At least we die with meat and bread in our stomachs. Out here, we're going to die of starvation. They're grumbling at God, and maybe even more, they're grumbling at Moses, who is supposed to be their leader. And then God responds with this incredible miracle and says, if it's bread you want, it's bread you will get. I will make it rain bread, is what the text says. And then it goes on to emphasize bread from the heavens, lechem min hashamayim. And it's understood in the time and place of these words that the heavens are not simply the clouds, the upper atmosphere. The heavens are that place beyond the firmament, the clear dome, where divine power resides, and from which the divine interacts with creation and with humankind. So this isn't just rain that is bread. This is divine bread. It's bread like nothing they've ever known. But there are two very important things about this bread. One, you can only take what you need for one day. You can't hoard it, save it, sell it, steal it, trade it. And two, you can't gather it on the sacred day of rest. On the sixth day, you will get exactly enough for 2 days. So evening comes and God sends poultry out for the people to eat, is how the story goes. And then the morning comes. And early in the morning, there's dew on the ground. And when the dew lifts, there is this strange, very thin stuff on the ground. It's an impossible word to translate. Mixpas. Maybe it's a nonsense word. And the people look down and they look at each other, and they look down again and they look at each other and they say, "What is this?" Which in Hebrew is manhu, or something pronounced roughly like that. And from that day on, when the people talk about the sacred bread given from heaven, they call it manhu, or man, or anglicized manna, meaning whatever this stuff is. And even their very best careful descriptions of it were still a mystery to the generations who would come after, who did not know that time of wandering in the wilderness. God promises to give us enough. Our sense of the divine, or our connectedness with one another in community, is built on a sense that we have enough, that we are fed with the bread of heaven. And this ancient witness of human beings striving for what they understood to be faithfulness, wandering on a journey into a new relationship with the divine and with one another, is that sometimes we see the divine nourishment that God has promised. Sometimes we experience the nourishment of community and we look around and we say, "What the heck is this stuff?" And so what do the people do next in the story? Do they just take enough for one day? Do they take a day to rest and not gather manna? No, of course not. Of course not. Because we are people for whom there's always a fear that there will not be enough. This ends the telling of this sacred story. About 15 years ago, not long after I graduated from seminary and moved with my husband to start his PhD program in Berkeley, California, I had one of those unforgettable encounters that would stick with me and change my perspective for the rest of my life. We were part of a small Lutheran church in that area that was very active in local advocacy and ministry with homeless youth. And the pastor there was a really remarkable woman, a salty, grounded person, just the right kind of pastor for a church that was made up of curmudgeon-y old Finnish Lutherans, recovering addicts, college students, and young adults who were aging out of the foster care system with nowhere else to go. And one day I was complaining about some person, I can't even remember what or who it was about, and Pastor Sarah said, "You know, a lot of times when we criticize someone, it's really about something we're critical of in ourselves." And I have had to do a lot of thinking about that in my life. As soon as she said it, I didn't like it, but those words would not go away from me. And still, every time I'm critical of something in someone else, I have to ask, is it really me? Am I just seeing something in that person that I actually don't like about myself? I still think about this idea often at surprising times. And to be honest, I have sometimes found it's not true. Sometimes there really are things that are not particularly helpful about other people that aren't all about being a reflection on me and my opinion of myself. But I have never found that it's a bad idea to pause and ask myself, where is this criticism coming from? Often it's hours or even days later that I finally work through this line of thought. But not too long ago, I had a breakthrough moment where I realized almost immediately that I was doing this thing again. It was in the interview for my current job, which was really just a lovely, affirming conversation with a bunch of friends I've served alongside for years, including Kayla Simmons Wood from the UCC Church here in Manhattan. And we were discerning together that I would take on this new role for the UCC in Kansas, Oklahoma as Associate Conference Minister for a designated term. And in the interview, one person asked, what's something that really bothers or irritates you about the church? Well, how long do we have? Am I right? I grew up in the UCC, a big, progressive, healthy congregation near Toledo, Ohio. And for a long time, that's all I knew about church. I thought all churches were like that. I love my church and our very near partners, the UU. We worked a lot with the UU in Toledo. When I was in middle school, our congregation was a lab church for what was then the new Our Whole Lives curriculum that we developed in partnership with the UU. I love so much about who we are and what we do. And one of the things that drives me nuts about churches, as I shared in this interview, is when people claim to want to be a part of the work. They insist they're committed to social justice. They want to take on leadership roles, and then they don't show up and follow through on their commitments. And almost as soon as I finished that sentence, I thought, is this about me? Do I feel like I don't show up enough and follow through? And I have to say that even as I am standing here, even with all of my work through Kifa and the UCC, I constantly have the feeling that I'm not doing enough. And I hear the same thing from many of my friends and co-laborers as they struggle with the same sense that they have not done enough, we haven't done enough, we aren't doing enough. I first learned about Kansas Interfaith Action in 2017. We had returned to Kansas from an academic sabbatical in New Jersey, and after the 2016 election, I knew I had to do something more. Our residence in Kansas was starting to feel a little bit more permanent by then as my spouse approached tenure. And at a conference that fall, I met Rabbi Moti Reber, and I learned about the work of Kifa, and I thought, this is it. This is what I can do. This is where I can really make a difference. And from that first moment right up until today, Kifa's approach has always held for me the perfect blend of vision and pragmatism, of wide impact and close community. And while, of course, national and international advocacy are absolutely important as well, it's the decisions that happen at the state level and at the local level that have the biggest impact on our daily lives. And that's especially true when it comes to economic justice and identity-based discrimination in this country. Our states are not equal, and we know it. And Kansas is a state where I knew that something better was possible, and where committed workers for environmental and economic and racial justice can make a real impact. If you know Rabbi Moti, I think you would agree that he is no pie-in-the-sky dreamer. Kifa's mission is grand and visionary in scope. We take our mission and we look to the lofty goals set by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in his 1967 address, The Three Evils of Society. And we pledge to overcome in Kansas what Dr. King named as racism, materialism, and militarism. So in today's language at our state level, we talk about racial justice and identity-based discrimination of all forms, economic justice, and criminal justice, including domestic violence and the idolatry of guns. And then to this, we add a fourth evil, climate degradation or environmental justice. We think Dr. King would have been a part of that movement too if he had been born at a different time. 55 years ago in that address, Dr. King said, "The hour is dark. Evil comes forth in the guise of good. It is a time of double talk, when men in high places have a high blood pressure of deceptive rhetoric and an anemia of concrete performance." 55 years ago. So here we are today. And year by year, we look to this inspired, lofty, sacred calling to witness against racism and poverty and violence and pollution. But we do it in these step-by-step, realistic, pragmatic ways, which is very much a product of Moti's excellent leadership and balance. And that's what keeps me coming back. That's why I stand with Moti and Kifa. That's why I keep serving on the board, because we dream these big dreams together. And then we sit down and we do the very small steps, the painfully slow process of shoring up good against the fear and the evil of people who want to use their power to gather up all the manna for themselves alone. So often the work we do with Kifa is merely preventative. Last year, we led a huge statewide coalition on our Teach the Truth campaign, protecting the rights of our teachers and students to teach and learn about the real history of this nation, warts and all, protecting the rights of teachers and students to say gay in the state of Kansas. We helped keep legislation off the floor that would have restricted even further the access and use of renewable energy in our state. We campaigned for voter rights, and we continue to support the most effective voter registration and participation drive in history with Voter to Voter. And we supported a successful effort to finally get rid of the food tax in Kansas, one of the most regressive taxes we can have, and the second highest of any state in the US. But was that enough? Is it enough? Did we do enough? It's such a difficult place to be. It is a difficult kind of work to keep doing year after year, to celebrate the small wins and focus on the ways we've made life a little better, a little easier, a little less fearful for folks in Kansas. And then to know that the next year, the next session, we'll have to go back and do a lot of the very exact same work all over again, and to once more wonder together, is it enough? Did we do enough? What else can we do? But this very question, this is what I think comes to the heart of what makes Kifa and interfaith work different from other forms of advocacy. We're not just any coalition, we're not just any diverse group of people. The interfaith part of our identity is what makes us who we are. And for some of us, that can be an uncomfortable place to live. By the very nature of our relationships, many of us at Kifa find the faith part of our work to be clumsy, sometimes even a little distasteful. Because we value people from many faith traditions. We value the wisdom of many faith traditions and secular people of good conscience. And that makes us wary about treading into that overlap of church and state. We don't always want to mix our faith and our advocacy, because what we really hope for is a community where the religious beliefs of others are not imposed on anyone else. But here we are, living in Kansas, where the church still gets a say and still controls, in many cases, the biggest purse strings, where far-right Christian nationalism is taking over our airwaves and sometimes even the opening prayers in the people's house. So it becomes necessary, at least for now, for us to show up and say, you don't speak for us. We are Christians, and you don't represent our beliefs. All Christians in Kansas don't believe what you're claiming. Or we are Kansans who are not Christian, and you don't speak for us. We are Kansans who are not religious, and we stand for religious pluralism. There's more than one moral narrative in this state when it comes to economics and race and the environment. And our legislators tell us year after year that having that language, having the alternative narrative that Kifa provides for them really does matter, really gives them a way to go back to their constituents and share that alternative. That kind of awareness and sensitivity that comes from our interfaith relationships is such an important part of what makes Kifa's contribution to advocacy at the State House unique. But it's still not, in my opinion, the very best part of what we do. It's not the heart of why interfaith work matters most. What is built right into an interfaith alliance, by its very definition, is that no one can do it alone. We can't be just Christians or just Muslims or just Jews or just Unitarians and call ourselves interfaith. The more diversity we bring to the table, the better we are at becoming who we say we are, the more fully we embody the name interfaith. And by its very definition, interfaith means we're committed to learning from one another, to listening to and being changed by the exchange of stories and sacred texts and traditions and values that we all bring to the same table. When it comes to interfaith advocacy, no one alone is ever enough. But if we are together, it is always already enough. We are more than enough. When we gather across faiths to take action and make a difference, we're not just envisioning some kind of future kingdom of heaven or divine kinship or beloved community. We're already there. We are that community. We're the beloved community working to make the table bigger and bigger. And in the work that we do, there's no special prize for getting there first. We don't tell new volunteers, oh, you'll have to go to the back of the line and wait. You'll have to go sit in the back of the room until you've been here longer. In fact, at Kifa, what we tend to say to new volunteers is, would you be willing to serve on our board starting right now? There's always room for more workers. We're all working together toward the same goal, whether you've been here for 1 year or 10 years or 50 years or more. Every time Kifa has an in-person event, I do a lot of grumbling to myself in the run-up to the actual date. You know, like, why do we have to do this when we could just do it on Zoom? Isn't all this driving bad for the environment? Why am I taking 4 hours out of my day on the road to Topeka and back when we're hardly making a difference anyway? And then we gather and we harvest the manna. We're fed with the bread of heaven, the divine sacred nourishment of our community, of being together and working together and learning together and sharing the joys and concerns in our daily lives together and sitting around an actual table with white and black and brown faces, with Jewish and Catholic and Muslim and Lutheran and Unitarian and secular faces, men and women, gay and straight, young and old. And we have this actual taste of this beloved community, and it nourishes us to keep going. And it reminds us of the most important thing, that in the end, we don't have to be enough. It's a little prideful, in fact, to think that we would be enough alone. Alone, we are not enough. We'll never finish all the work. But together, we are more than enough. Against the voices in our culture spewing a tale of scarcity and fear of hopelessness or ineffectiveness, Kifa's very existence is proof of the truth that we are powerful enough. We're worthy enough. We have enough to keep going. The truth is that no matter what happens on Tuesday, we will wake up on Wednesday disappointed. We will not get every win we hope for. The change we urgently need will not come overnight on November 8th. And it will be easy to fall into that trap again of thinking that we aren't enough. We didn't register enough voters. We didn't make enough campaign calls. We didn't contribute enough money. It will be easy to fall into the narrative of failure and fear and scarcity. But I hope we can hold on to the promise that what we can change on Tuesday is the way we nourish ourselves, the way we feed ourselves with the sacred bread of community and of shared hope. That we will remind ourselves of the power of the beloved community that we're already a part of. And that we will hold fast to the undeniable power of that revolutionary love for one another that will one day overcome hatred. In the deserts or in the wildernesses of our lives' journeys, may we just find enough to sustain the change in our hearts that will indeed one day change the world. Thank you so much for inviting me here today.
Thank you, Rachel, for reminding us. Oh boy, did we need to hear this, that we're more than enough to carry through these difficult times to our brighter future. So thank you very much. So please stand in body or spirit to join us in our closing hymn, number 391, Voice Still and Small. A Prayer for Desert Times by Margaret Keep. The journeys of our lives are never fully charted. There come to each of us deserts to cross, barren stretches where the green edge on the horizon may be our destination, or an oasis on our way, or a mirage that beckons only to leave us lost. When fear grips the heart or despair bows the head, may we bend his heart and head, lead us down to touch the ground beneath our feet. May we scoop some sand into our hands and receive what the sand would teach us. It holds the warmth of the sun when the sun has left our sight, as it holds the cool of the night when the stars have faded. Hidden among its grains are tiny seeds at rest and waiting, dormant yet undefeated. Desert flowers, they endure, moistened by our tears and by the rains which come to end even the longest drought. They send down roots and they bloom. May we believe in those seeds and in the seeds within us. May we remember in our dry seasons that we too are desert flowers. Amen. Thank you all and have a beautiful day.